And welcome, everybody. Once again, a sold-out crowd at Amato's. We are in the bowels of Valencia Street, and it is Renee and Irish Greg's pop-up show. Thanks for being here, y'all.
Yeah. Thank you so much, you guys. Today, we always say this, we're very excited about all of our shows. Coming up a little later on, the great Ben Fong Torres, the legendary Rolling Stone writer. He now writes for the San Francisco Chronicle, and you all know him from all of that, and Almost Famous, the movie. But before we get to Ben, which will be up in a little bit, we're thrilled to welcome the great, everybody's the great Steve Poltz.
Steve Poltz. Steve has a show tonight at the Great American Music Hall. Of course, many of you are going to be at that gig, but we're so happy to have this intimate setting to hang out with you, Steve. Hi there.
I'm happy I'm here. We got into town yesterday. No, I played in Santa Cruz last night. I forgot. And then drove after the show. Woke up in Dogpatch, staying at the coolest place with a view, 360 view of everything. Somebody's letting us stay at their place.
I was going to say, when you're on tour, do you Airbnb or do you just crash on people's couches, or what do you do?
I'm totally Marriott Platinum Elite.
So you're at Santa Cruz last night and you're at the Great American Music Hall tonight. You're on the road all the time, huh? You basically live on the road.
I do. I play about 200 shows a year, which means I'm away 300 days a year because a lot of it is travel. Like, you got to get to Australia and then fly from Sydney to Perth or somewhere and then back over up to Canada. And so always on the road, yes.
It's something obviously that you love. It's not something you do. I mean, is it out of necessity that you have to be on the road?
You want me to look at the camera?
I know. Well, this is what's so funny. Here's what's funny about this. We're radio people. Like, we never look at the camera. We look at each other and just pay attention to the microphone. Yeah. So it's going to be a learning curve for all of us.
Okay.
Look at the camera or don't. It doesn't matter.
So, yeah.
No, I prefer it when you look at us. It's a bit weird. It's a bit weird the other way.
Yeah.
Steve is sticking his finger up his nose for those listening on the podcast. Anyway, but back to being on the road. It's obviously something you like.
I love it. It's really weird because you never know what's going to happen. Like, I left this thing called Folk Alliance in Kansas City, and we got on our flight. I'm A-list preferred on Southwest, so I'm really into collecting points, and so I'm trying to collect 1 million points on Southwest, and so my girlfriend Sharon flies with me for only $5 wherever they go. So we were taking off from Kansas City, and we're sitting. There's this guy studying. You know, he's got his laptop out, and everybody's quiet as the plane takes off, and we hear this boom about 2 minutes into it, and there was a spark at the left engine, and I looked at it, and he goes, "That did not sound good." And I go, "No, it didn't." Everybody got quiet. That feeling of dread that you get where nobody speaks, but you see the person next to them grab the hand of the person they love, and this was only just like last week, so there's silence, and nobody's saying a word, and finally the captain comes on, and he says, "Folks, I know you just heard that, and the smell of flesh and feathers burning is a big bird we've hit, and we still have our other engine, and we need to turn around, and we need to land in Kansas City where we just took off from, and don't worry, I'm going to land safely, but we need to inspect the engine and just ignore the burning smell." And I'm looking at Sharon. So we land, and right when we land, it was kind of cool because as we were waiting, they served chicken wings, and so, but
ironically,
it was weird. A boom kitchen. No, so we wait like 2 hours for them to finish this, and they get it all working. Plane takes off. We land. I go to San Diego to play a show. We get picked up by my girlfriend's dad. He's 87 in his favorite Ford Ranger that he's had since like 1989. He's gotten the oil changed every 3,000 miles. We're driving, and all of a sudden ahead of us, this Uber driver just decides to make an illegal U-turn and T-bones into the side of me in the passenger seat. Boom, both cars get totaled. Both. I had to crawl out of the driver's side door. I am not kidding you. And the funniest thing is the passenger in the Uber car was this surfer dude in San Diego, and he gets out, and there's just silence. We're all stunned. The road is blocked off. The front of this Porsche, or whatever the Uber thing was, this Toyota thing, is ripped off. And the guy gets out, the passenger, and he goes, do I have to pay for this trip? That was like what he was thinking about. And then he goes, because it shows I'm still en route and I need to order another Uber. So I'm waiting for the third thing to drop. Is all.
That's fine.
Right.
So, Steve, you could have had a career as a stand-up comedian. And for those of you who've never seen Steve Poltz play live, this is kind of part of the deal, right? It's as much kind of funny banter as it is tunes.
Well, I've spent my life on the road, and I love that I still get to do this for a living. I'm still excited. I mean, look at this. We're all in a basement somewhere in the Mission District at 1 in the afternoon. I mean, look at where our lives take us.
I know. Now I've watched a couple of YouTube things with that, of your performances, and sometimes you have hecklers. How do you handle that? I mean, do you embrace the heckler? Because I was watching something and I'm like, this guy is a total ass that was talking to you. He had a problem with the way you were saying ask.
Oh, everybody always has an opinion about something, so I'm just used to it.
Yeah.
I get a lot of weird letters and emails from people. Somebody, eventually gets angry at some show they saw. I had a huge hit with a singer named Jewel, and so it was a huge smash hit. It was on the Billboard Top 100 forever. It was a song called "You Were Meant for Me." Yeah. Now, we wrote this song just on a surfing trip in Mexico. We weren't trying to write a hit song. Next thing we know, Jewel gets signed to Atlantic Records, and Neil Young says, "Come live at the ranch, and we'll produce the record." Here he has Ben Keith, now deceased, from the Stray Gators, produce it. So sometimes, in the rare occasion, some people will go, "Wrote Jewel's hit, You Were Meant for Me." So a lot of older Jewel fans will show up thinking they're going to get this sensitive singer-songwriter. And I don't know what I wrote that day. For instance, the other day I wrote a song called "I'ma Chew Your Nipple." And so I decided I would open with it. And it was like, "I'ma chew your nipple while I drive in the car." Well, I got hate mail from this guy. And the title was "Offended." And I love hate mail because I don't engage. Yeah. I just start asking them the craziest things, like, send me a picture right now of where you are. I just want a picture where you are. Do you want to meet up later and we can cook some scrambled eggs? Do you like Williams Sonoma espresso machines? What sort of coffee are you using? And finally, they block me.
Yeah, right.
That's hilarious.
Great. That's great.
So we do want you to tell us the story, not right now, but later, before you go, you do have to tell us the story of how you wrote "You Were Meant for Me," the song with Jewel, which was probably one of the 2 or 3 biggest hits of the 90s. But we're going to get you to tell that story. But before that, will you play a song for us now?
I would love to play a song
Steve
for you.
Poltz.
Yes, Steve Poltz.
Cool. Caramel sky painted across the clouds. Somebody's struggling, but everyone's allowed. And if you're gonna reach for the stars. Pack yourself a lunch and some antique jars. Celebrate your fears, celebrate your scars. You've earned every one, you're a shiny old car. Shine on, shine on, shine on. You got the Mercedes covered up with rust. Champagne fizz from the boom to the bust. From a faraway farm to the California gold. Chasing down a dream, you just can't be sold. Celebrate life, let it all fall free. Kick off your shoes and wiggle your feet. And shine on, shine on, shine on. feel, taste what's real, jump in the ocean, and bark like a seal. And if you're gonna reach for the sky, smile at a stranger, let the tears fly. Celebrate peace, don't pick fights. Communicate love, turn on your light. Shine on, shine on, shine on.
That is Steve Poltz with us today on Renee and Irish Greg's pop-up show. Steve, I want to ask you, because I know you have a history of naming your guitars. What's the name of that guitar?
Smokey Joe. This is Smokey Joe. This was given to me by Bob Taylor. He owns Taylor Guitars. So he flew me out to Nashville to play this thing called the NAMM Convention, which stands for National Association of Music Merchants. And what it is, it's this huge trade show where everybody comes, like all these guitar stores, and they put their orders in for the year of the neatest, newest, high-tech stuff, the best guitars. And so I went there to the NAMM show, and he said, pick any guitar you want. This is about 16 years ago, and I saw this one up on the wall, and I went to grab it. He goes, not that one. And then he says, it's not like I'm giving you the guitar. You could just use it, but I don't want you to use that guitar. And I said, why? And he goes, because that's crappy. And I said, what's crappy about it? He said, well, the woods don't match. We're going to call it Tobacco Burst, but it's sort of spray painted on. The woods don't match. In fact, I'm going to take it off the wall because it's going back to the factory in San Diego, and we're going to take it apart just to use the parts for something else. And I looked at it like it was a dog at the pound. And I said, you're going to kill it? You're going to kill the guitar? And the more I played it, the more the guitar spoke to me. Now, I have what's called ADD, ADHD, and I also have ODD, which is oppositional defiance disorder. So when someone tells me not to do something, I'm going the other way. So I said, screw this, I'm playing that guitar. And I pulled it off of the thing. I said, this is Smokey Joe. This was 16 or 17 years ago when I started playing it. And then each day I would play 3 times, and the crowds got bigger and bigger for people to watch what was happening. They said, there's this weirdo playing, you got to check it out. So I'm at the NAMM show, National Association of Music Merchants, and the last day I said, this is so cool. You guys are all here at the NAMM convention. I had a cousin who fought in NAMM, and I just want to honor you guys for everything you've done. Afterwards, Bob Taylor walks up, he goes, you are insane. You can have this guitar. So he gave me, and it said factory demonstration, and I made him cut off stration, so it just says factory demon in here.
Very nice. It's nice to meet Smokey Joe.
So, Steve, you talked about ADD, and you talked about all this list of ailments that you have, and I know nothing's off limits with you, so you don't mind me asking about you having a stroke on stage?
Oh, yeah, 2 years ago. That was a scary situation. I was at a place called Wilmington, Delaware. Every time I drive by Wilmington, Delaware on the East Coast now, I flip it off because it just reminds me of what happened. And I was at a place called World Cafe Live, and I was on stage, and my vision started short-circuiting, and I didn't know what was going on until I finally went blind. And I could barely see through a keyhole in my left eye, but I didn't say anything to the audience because I'm originally from Canada, and we don't like to upset people. Even on our buses, it says, sorry, if they're out of order. So I just stood there on stage, and I didn't want to let the audience down. But after an hour, I finally said, you guys, can you see? Which is something they don't teach you to say in folk singer school. And then everybody said, we can see. And then I said, well, I can't see. I've gone blind, and I need to sit down. I'm about to faint. And this guy in the back goes, come on, man. I drove all the way from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. It's my son's 21st birthday. I paid good money for this show.
Oh, my God.
So he wanted me to sign vinyl records like I have there. And I signed them, and they propped me up like Weekend at Bernie's and took pictures with me. Rushed me to the hospital, and I called the Padres team doctor because he's a good friend of mine, Dr. Kakahashi, but I couldn't remember his name. And so finally I was like, he had given me his phone number. He called it his bat phone. So I said, I think his name's Dr. Batman. And so finally I remember, oh yeah, it's Dr. Kakahashi, of course. So we called him and he said, was it like a curtain going down over your eyes? And I said, yeah. And he goes, you got to get to the hospital right now. So I got to the hospital. There was a guy ahead of me that had stabbed himself somehow in the head with a screwdriver and was sticking out.
Oh my God.
It was crazy. I could see it through the corner of my eye that I could see out of. Another guy had cut off his fingers. So I'm third in line. And the lady goes, what's the matter with you? And I go, I don't know. I've gone blind. And she goes, was it like a curtain coming down? And I go, where do you people learn this? So they did an MRI and then they came in and said, yeah, you've had a stroke. I was in the hospital for like 7 days and my vision came back. When it came back, I couldn't read. But then it all worked out. But the weird thing the stroke did was after the stroke, I was never into the Grateful Dead, but afterwards I became a Deadhead.
No.
It's so weird. I'm not
That's
kidding
so
you.
funny.
Like I've learned like 13 Grateful Dead songs since the stroke. Their music makes sense to me.
Oh my God, I love it.
This is the greatest podcast I've ever been on.
It's funny because earlier you said, you're people, Jewel fans come to see you and you're not a sensitive singer-songwriter, but the song you played for us first is a sensitive singer-songwriter. So it's this weird juxtaposition that you're frickin' hilarious.
Well, I learned something years ago from Huey Lewis. I read a Rolling Stone article when Huey Lewis and the News were big, and he said they used to play up in
Marin.
Yeah. And he said they did this thing where they would play at this bar, and he had this theory.
2 a.m. club.
He called it
right?
Infiltrate, then Double Cross, was Huey Lewis. So they would do cover songs, and then they would do one of their own. So it's called Infiltrate, then Double Cross. Just when you get them on your side, you sucker punch them with something else. They're like, oh, he's nice, but no, he's like a stray dog you took home that craps on the carpet.
Can we get another song from Steve Poltz?
I'll trade you Donald Trump for Leonard Cohen. Come on, God, you know which way the winds are blowing. The climate is so hot, and then it starts a-snowing. What do you say, God, Donald Trump for Leonard Cohen? Hey, God, I'll trade you Donald Trump for Muhammad Ali. Come on, God, you don't need glasses, I mean you can really see. They're locking up the poor folks, don't want them to be free. What do you say, God, Donald Trump or Cassius Clay? Well, I don't know what happened with people smoking coke. This is some kind of crazy elaborate joke. There's people that are sick and their noses are runny. But if this is a joke, I don't think it's really funny. Hey God, I'll trade you Donald Trump for Carrie Fisher. Come on, God, you know the planet's in the pisser. Oh, we don't need some swindler, pussy grabber, and a kisser. Hey, what do you say, God, Donald Trump for Princess Leia? Hey, God, I'd trade you Donald Trump for David Bowie. Come on, God, you know the Russian nukes, they're getting glowy. The heats are coming down when it should be nice and snowy. What do you say, God, Donald Trump for Ziggy Stardust? Hey, God, I'll trade you Donald Trump for Harper Lee. I'll even throw in a mockingbird and set my people free. The banks are getting fat and they're full on lots of greed. What do you say, God, Donald Trump or Harper Lee? Well, I don't know what happened with people reading fake news. Did they ignore the alarm and did everyone hit snooze? There's people that need health care that are sleeping on the streets. Well, Donald's taking golden showers wrapped in satin sheets. Hey, God, I trade you Donald Trump for Prince. When I see Cheeto Jesus, man, it makes me want to wince. The planet hasn't been the same at all ever since. What do you say? Got orange face for purple rain. Hey, God, I trade you Donald Trump for Dave Leonard Cohen. Come on, God, you can do anything after all. You are all-knowing. When Donald opens up his mouth, the hellish winds start blowing. What do you say, God, Donald Trump or Woody Guthrie?
That is Steve Poltz joining us today on Renee and Irish Stripes pop-up show.
That's a new one.
Yeah.
It's up online.
Yeah.
It's already up online. I even put it up on SoundCloud with no vocals. So the haters that wrote me that were mad at me, I said, I'll tell you what, you can write verses about me like, hey, God, I'll trade you Steve Poltz for Richard Nixon. And just insert any of your right-wing heroes that are dead into the song. It'll be awesome. And I said, I'll put it up on SoundCloud. You can sing your own karaoke version.
That's great.
So people are doing that now, too. Yeah, I welcome all haters. I greet them with open arms.
I love it.
The last guest we had on our podcast was Wesley Stace, John Wesley Harding. And
he's my buddy.
Yeah, well, he did a parody of Mr. Tambourine Man called Mr. Tangerine Man. And it was hilarious, and you can check it out. It's on our Facebook page. But we talked to him about how humor seems to be the most effective deterrent to what's going on in this country right now.
Humor is wonderful. I grew up on the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour.
Oh, yeah.
I was born February 19th, 1960, and as a little kid, I would stay up and watch the Smothers Brothers, and it really, really affected me. That show, Pat Paulson, come on. The deadpan humor in that, man. I learned so much about what a straight man does versus with Tommy Smothers, and I would say, why is Dickie Smothers so mean? And my dad would explain to me, just as he explained to me the game of baseball, he explained to me how they worked together, and I just loved it. It really affected me and molded and shaped me.
Yeah, well, we're looking forward to tons of comedy because of this situation. It's going to get hysterical, I think.
It is. It really is.
And well, the other thing too is just creatively, all kinds of people are tapping into their creative side. We had another artist who was here, the Sam Chase, and he was like, this is what needed to happen because.
I love Sam.
Yeah, do you know Sam?
He's my buddy too.
He knows everybody.
Yeah. So Sam was saying, the problem is all us songwriters, all we had to complain about was that the cheese wasn't good enough and the wine wasn't tasty. So this gives us something really to dive into deep in our hearts.
That.
Yeah.
Wow, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like Sam and John Wesley Harding, Wesley Stace.
Yeah.
I just played his Cabinet of Wonders in New York as one of his guests.
He was in town. That's why we had him on. He's wonderful, isn't he?
Oh, he's so good.
Have you written a book? He's a writer.
I'm working on one right now. I have an agent, so yeah, I'm working on
a memoir.
Stories and weird ramblings.
Yeah, that sounds right. Can I ask you something? Is Weslly Stace much of a control freak? Is it easy or difficult to work with him?
It was really easy for me. I'm just used to people being in control and doing stuff. If I'm doing a show, I'm really mellow.
Yes.
The more you do this, the more you just like, okay, hurry up and wait. Okay, when do I go on? I sort of just always sit and I'm mellow, and then when I get on stage, it's showtime.
So, another thing you've talked about in the past, Steve, is you're now sober, but you used to be a partier.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm wondering how that affected the creative process.
Well, I used to think I needed a drink to take the edge off before I went on stage. And then after rehab, they graduated everybody after these 28-day programs, and they give you a little diploma. And then I went up there, they go, not so fast, Abernathy, and pulled me back. They said, you got to do 28 more days. So I did that. And then once I got out, I was fine. That was like 12 years ago. And then what I learned was, why do I want to take the edge off? I want the edge on.
That's right on.
Play the blues, Edge. So, your people.
My people, exactly.
So yeah, I love it. I love being sober. I like talking about it.
Yeah.
I love people drinking around me. I have no problem. They could do whatever they want. I'm done. So it was fun for me. Well, it lasted.
Yeah, that's good. That's great.
People come up to me now because they see me on stage talking every once in a while, and they go, "Hey, I drink a lot. I'm thinking about getting sober." And I always go, "Don't do it." I use reverse psychology, and then they're like, "Why not?" And they follow me around. You don't want to do that.
Did it counteract your energy? Because your energy is so like, if you didn't know better, you'd think you were on speed.
I know, right? No, I was born hyper. My mom just said ever since I was a little kid, if I'm not looking you in the eye, I'm not even listening to what you're saying. I'm just like wandering, writing songs. I love making up songs. Like from the age of 6, I started playing guitar, and the first song I wrote was for my dog. And his name was Bojo, but I called him Honey, and I shortened it to Hunson. And then I didn't know what to rhyme with Hunson, so I came up with Adunson. And then I was only listening to Herman's Hermits, and all their songs were in an English accent. So it was like, Mrs. Brown, you've got a lovely daughter, and I'm in a ready A for you. So instead, the first song I wrote in an English accent, and it was for my dog Hunson, and it went like this. I've never forgotten it.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Hunson, Dunson, where's your buncin? I thought I saw it the other day. Was it walking or was it talking? I don't know. I could not say. And then he'd jump up and lick my face.
That's awesome.
And then he'd paw me to do it again.
Great.
So we won't ask you to play all of that, but can we get another song from you, please, Steve?
Oh, I would love to play another song. Yeah. This is such a good podcast.
I know! Isn't it? Thank you.
How lucky am I that I got to be your guest today? Thank you.
for
How
being
lucky
here.
are we? Seriously.
Yeah, it's really cool. You know, a lot of songwriters write songs and they use love and above and blue and true. And when you think of those words, picture them as if they're Sherpas on a big hike, carrying the weight of all these songs on their back. Love, above, blue, true. They're such tired words. And sometimes they say, please, can I have a timeout? Please, I'm spelunking in a cave full of songs somewhere in Portugal, somewhere in the northern Basque region of Spain. And I thought, yeah, why not other words like gibbous to describe the moon? What about refulgent? What about reproach? What about the word elan, E-L-A-N? Nobody uses elan. What about pertinacious? The gibbous moon was shining, and on snakeskin we were dining. His pocket knife clicked on the tin of his plate. Like nails on a chalkboard, it started to grate. A timorous man could reach to new heights. A simple reproach can lead to a fight. With a land I stood to defend my ground. I let that pocket knife slowly pound from his chest to his neck, from his thigh to his eye. It was raining blood from the refulgent sky. That's funny! That's not really funny. Murder isn't funny. He was a pertinacious critic of the arts. He said my music sounded just like duck farts. He was willy-nilly in every way, and I wanted to make him pay. He was an inimical man for sure, and I wanted his pain to be pure. I put a bomb in his ignition switch. When he started his car, I said, take that, bitch. His arm blew past my head. His blood was the darkest red. That's funny. That's not really funny. Murder isn't funny.
Now that was fantastic. Steve Poltz, everybody. Renee and Irish Greg's pop-up show. That was good.
I'm playing tonight at Great American Music Hall. There are 60 Only 60 tickets left, so if the rest of you buy them, it'll be sold out.
There you go.
I want to see you there tonight. Free hugs.
Steve, you used to be. Steve was in a punk rock band. The Rugburns were basically a punk rock band.
Punky
Folky.
Yeah.
And you played with Green Day, and you toured all.
Henry Rollins, everybody.
Yeah.
We opened for the Ramones. That was so cool.
Wow.
Imagine this. Sold out. Cleveland. Outdoor amphitheater. Ramones final tour. We get to open. The promoter comes backstage. We're in the room. We're so nervous. He says, "What's going on?" I said, "We're really nervous." He said, "Why?" I said, "Because we're opening for the Ramones." He goes, "Listen, I'm going to apologize in advance on behalf of all Ramones fans everywhere, but fans only want to see the Ramones, and you'll probably get some stuff thrown at you." And I'm so scared. And I go, okay. So we walk out on stage. Our drummer's wearing a kilt, and it's packed. And then this is my opening, my brilliant moment of the most idiotic thing I've ever said. I go, "Good evening, everybody. We're the Rugburns, and we're from San Diego, California. Please give us a warm Cleveland welcome." And I'm standing there, and in the distance, I see a lemon flying, but I couldn't move. I was like a deer in headlights, and I'm like this, and it goes bam, put a crack in my guitar, split the guitar, so everybody goes, "Ah, ah, ah, ah." Our drummer comes out from behind the kit of the drums. He's wearing a kilt. I grab the leg, I pick it up, and I squeeze it on my face, and then he lays down. He has nothing on underneath his kilt, spreads his leg in front of the audience, and I squeeze it all in his private areas. Well, the Ramones fans loved this. Next thing I know, we end our set. We have a standing ovation.
And it was.
Wait, didn't that hurt his wee?
Oh, it did hurt his wee.
Thank you. I'm glad Renee asked that. We were all
That's what
thinking
you're thinking about.
Yeah. You lost me there. I was like,
Lemon on the wee?
So, Steve, it was around this time, and I do want to. I know you've told this story a million times, but it's a wonderful story. I hope I'm not overselling it a little much. But it was about this time, at the end of the Rugburns, that you and Jewel became friends.
Yes, we did. She was working at a coffee house. I don't mind telling this. I always tell it different each time.
Okay, well, because it's funny when I was when I was on the radio station that I'm not contractually allowed mention.
Oh yeah.
wait, how many shirts are you wearing?
I was so cold this morning. I'm not actually staying in an apartment in Dogpatch. It's kind of a garage.
So
just now warming up.
Steve told this story on the air, and it was hilarious, and it was just the greatest story I'd ever heard anybody tell on our radio show. And my boss came in, who knows you, Brian, and Brian goes, "That's like the 8th best version of that story I've ever heard." I was like, "That was nothing."
There are so many versions of this story that I don't even know what's true anymore. It's crazy, but the basics of the story are true in that Jewel had moved down from Homer, Alaska, and she was living in a Volkswagen van. That's all true. And she was working at a place called Java Joe's in Poway, California. And Poway, California has nothing but they had Java Joe's. That was it. All the houses look alike. It's like little boxes on the hillside, little boxes made of ticky-tacky. But there was this one place, and at Java Joe's, they would have an illegal poker game in the back room late at night at like 2 in the morning. So I was driving back down the road after playing on tour with the Rugburns, and we got in a fist fight, me and the drummer with each other. So those guys flew home.
That was because of the lemon, wasn't it?
Yes. Those guys flew home, and I was left with the van all alone. I stopped in Las Vegas, and I met Joe Strummer and taught him how to play blackjack before his show. Drove back to San Diego. Jewel was there. I had a sore throat, and I came walking, and I said, "Could you make me some tea? I have a sore throat." And she said, "Sure." So she makes me this tea, and then she says, "I play guitar too." And I said, "That's cool." And she said, "Do you want to go make stained glass art in my van? I make stained glass art." So I go, "Yeah." So we made stained glass art till like the sun came up. Really cool stained glass artwork. And then I said, do you like to surf? And she said, yeah. So we went surfing. And then I said, let's write some songs together. She didn't know the difference between the Beatles and the Rolling Stones. Like, she really didn't. She grew up on this homestead in Homer, Alaska. So we would write songs together. Next thing I know, we go down to Mexico to go songwriting and surfing. And we get down there, and I love Mexico. I went to college down in Guadalajara, Mexico. Me gusta Mexico mucho. Es mi favorito país en todo el mundo. I love Viva Mexico. So we're driving down there, and I asked this truck driver, ¿Dónde está una playa bonita? Which means, where's a beautiful beach? And he says, oh, a la izquierda. And he said, but be careful, tan cuidado. Hay muchos drogas, and it's an illegal airstrip back in the day, and it was a place called Bahia de San Luis Gonzaga. And we're driving down the road. There's a full moon. There's fog coming in. And I just keep going. It said, keep out, no further. But I kept going because, like I said, I have ODD. So I keep driving. And then we see this old motel. We knock on the door. Nobody's behind the desk. So we break into one of the rooms. We fall asleep on a beautiful bed with Mexican blankets. When we wake up in the morning, we realize we're in paradise, and Jules wearing a yellow bikini. And she says, I want to go whale watching. And I said, well, I don't have a boat. And then almost as if on cue came 4 Mexican federales down the beach with guns shoved in their belts. And they slowly sauntered up to us. It was like they were in a movie by Sergio Leone with a soundtrack by Ennio Morricone. And you could hear the woo-wee-woo. And they just sauntered up to us, and the guy had a gold tooth, and he said, would you guys like to go whale watching? I couldn't believe it. So I said no, and Jules said yes. So I said, okay, let's go out on the boat. So we go down the boat. I said, what are you doing? He says, we're looking for drug smugglers. I said, is it dangerous? He said, sí, es muy peligro. And then he lifts up his shirt. He has 4 bullet hole wounds with exit wounds coming out of the back. And then he says, we don't have time to take you guys to shore. We have to catch drug smugglers right now. We're going to an island. There could be a shootout. Would you like an AK-47? And I was listening to a lot of Snoop Dogg at the time. I go, hell yeah, Dre, give me an AK, bitch. So he gives me an AK. And Jules says, no, I believe in angels. And the boat's going across the water. And then she sees me with the AK-47. And she goes, excuse me, I would like an AK-47. So she's wearing a yellow bikini. She's in the boat. The AK-47 has a strap right between her breasts. The boat's bouncing slowly. Her blonde hair is going back. She looks like Uma Thurman in Kill Bill. And so they go to the island. They catch the slowest drug smugglers they could find. The guy tells them where all the weed was buried. 50 tons of weed. The cops make me carry it. They get other boats. They bring all the weed back to shore. Jewel goes, we got to get out of here. She grabs me like that. We jump off of the boat. And then the cop says, Esteban, ven aquí, which means Steve, come here. And I said, what? And he goes, this is the largest drug bust we have had in years. It's a record. And I go, okay, cool. Well, we're going to get going. What are you going to do? And he goes, we're going to have a party. So then I said, okay, cool, you guys have the party. And then he says, take some. And I said, of the pot? And he says, yeah. I said, no way, man, I'll go to jail. I mean, this is back in 1994, right? Before you even thought weed would ever be legal. I go, I'll go to jail. I'll be like the guy in the movie Midnight Express. He goes, I said, take some. And he opens up a switchblade. And now we're like in a Coen Brothers film, like Blood Simple. My heart's beating, boom, 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 boom. So I'm trying to figure out what less than an ounce was. I stick my long, skinny fingers. You could smell the skunk weed wafting through the air. And then he says, take a whole kilo. So I take the kilo, my hands are shaking. He goes, now take a picture with us. So he puts his arms around me, and these pictures are on the internet if you type in Jewel drug bust photos. We're holding guns, we've got Corona beers, a big black Suburban behind us, tons of weed. I walk away with the weed, and Jewel says, you're giving it to the first person you can see. And it was an 80-year-old Mexican woman slowly cooking spaghetti sauce in a big silver pot. And on it was a chalkboard, and it said, welcome youth group, Mormon youth group from Salt Lake City, Utah. And then she made Mexican spaghetti weed for this Mormon youth group. And Jules said, we got to tell those Mormon kids. And I said, I'm going to sleep. I'm staying out of it. When I woke up at midnight, everyone was reenacting Lord of the Flies. They were singing Kumbaya backwards, playing naked frisbee. I woke up in the morning, there was a Mormon missionary guy asleep next to a goat, and the tide was coming in. I woke up the Mormon missionary guy, and his hair was perfect, just like the Warren Zevon song, Werewolves of London. He looked at me, and I looked at him. He goes, you've saved my life. And I said, no worries, dude. Come see my band play. I'm in a band called the Rugburns. We're going to be playing the Casbah. He said, I think I'll do that. And I said, cool. And then he said, what's your name? And I go, Steve Poltz. What's yours? And he goes, Mitt Romney. And I go, cool, nice to meet you. That name meant nothing to me back then. Nothing at all. I couldn't believe it, and I've never forgotten it. I went back to the hotel room. Jewel was asleep, and I woke her up and told her the story, and that's when we wrote this song.
Wow. Can you play a little bit of it for us? Oh my God.
That might have usurped a couple of the other versions. What does usurp mean? I hear the clock is 6 a.m. I feel so far from where I've been. I got my eggs, I got my pancakes too. Well, I got my maple syrup, everything but you. I break the yolks, make a smiley face, and I kinda like it in my brand new place. I wipe the spots off of the mirror, don't leave the keys in the door. I never put wet towels on the floor anymore, 'cause dreams last for so long, even after you're gone. And I know that you love me, and soon I know you will see you were meant for me, and I was meant for you. Let's just go to the bridge. I go about my business and I'm doing fine. Besides, what would you say if I had you on the line? Same old story now, much to say. Hearts are broken every day. So the weird thing is, the song ends up getting really popular. Well, just the other night, it was on this show called The Voice. And the only reason I know is because people text me and my phone blows up. There'll be like 86 texts. Dude, your song was on The Voice. Some blonde chick was singing it. It was on for more than 17 and a half seconds. You just cleaned up. Honey, let's buy a house. I brush my teeth, I put the cap back on. I know you hate it when I leave the light on. And I pick a book up, I turn the sheets down. I take a drink and a good look around. I put on my PJs and I hop into bed. I'm half alive, but I feel mostly dead. I tell myself it'll all be alright. I shouldn't think anymore tonight, 'cause dreams last for so long, even after you're gone. And I know that you love me, and soon I know you will see you were meant for me, and I was meant for you. You were meant for me, and I was meant for you. Yeah, 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 yeah. Was that the story you were looking for?
That was even better because Mitt Romney wasn't in the version that I heard. That was wonderful. I want to ask you about that song because Renee and I got into radio at about the same time, which was about when that song came out, and we were both in alternative radio. We worked at Live 105, and it was weird because we would play Nirvana and, you know, Pearl Jam and all of this stuff, and then going back to The Clash or Elvis Costello or whatever. And the next thing is that becomes one of the biggest songs ever certainly of the 90s, and it started getting played on alternative radio.
It's crazy. I just call it, I was a benefit of fortuitous timing, because what happened was, okay, so Nirvana comes out,
Right.
Pearl Jam, and then there were all these second wave bands like Candlebox and these other
Bush
bands,
and,
Bush and different styles. And so people, I think, got tired. You know how people's ears just tire of a certain sound, and then it was time for women, and it was like Sarah McLachlan, Paula Cole, Sheryl Crow, Jewel, all those people. And so then it was Lilith Fair. It was this big festival, so I started Frasier Fair because Frasier dated Lilith. on Cheers. But it wasn't as big, but it was me, John Doe, Pete Droge, and Glenn Phillips. And we even played San Francisco, and I called it Fraser Fair. But yeah, so the song, I was a benefit of lucky timing.
And that was when people were buying CDs also.
Oh, dude, and I was in the video. Yeah. So not only was I in the video, it was the single, it was the cassette single. Right. It was crazy. And then I'm the dude in the video. So at first, this song only sold like 20,000 copies. They thought, okay, that's going to be the end of Jewel, blah, blah, blah. Next thing, she redoes the video. Sean Penn directed the first version, and nothing happened. And then they go, let's redo it, and we'll get Flea to play bass on the song. So they send the track back to Flea. They keep in my part that goes... and all my guitar picking part. So Flea plays bass on the song. And then they do it again. They make a new video, and Jewel goes, will you be the guy in the video and not wear a shirt and go like this to my face? So if you look up, You Were Meant for Me, you'll see me like shirtless going... like this to her face, and then all my friends are like, you're an idiot. But then these huge checks started coming in. It was crazy. I was like, my dad goes, he called me, he goes, this check is so big, I don't know what to do. It's got to be wrong. Like, that's the first thing he thinks about me. Why would you have a check this big? I go to the bank now, cash it.
So I work in music licensing now, so I know, I see your name every day. People are, I license cover versions, so I see your name and Jules' name on there on a daily basis. And it does, I'm always a little impolite with this question, but when you write a huge hit song, do you ever have to work again?
It gives you, I call it like an endowment from the arts, and it took care of me. I never really let it affect me. I sent my parents on a cruise to Alaska, bought them a MacBook Pro, sent my niece and nephew to hip-hop dance class and did crazy things. But I just kept doing what I was doing. I never cared about a really nice car or anything, and I have a really good life. I live in East Nashville with my girlfriend. We bought a great little house. So I have enough, but I would do this no matter what. I could win $1 billion. Like, it's just funny. I just love just coming up with the newest song is the way I'm paid. And I mean that. I'm not even being facetious at all. Like, all I care about, my riches are my songs and being able to play to rooms of this size, bigger, smaller. I do people's houses, and I just love it. And that's what keeps me going. I don't want to die because I love what I'm doing so much.
That's so great.
So beautiful.
So, what an absolute...
Radio can't see it.
That's funny. What an absolute treat to have Steve Poltz here. We can't let you go without playing one more song for us. Would you mind?
Cool. I would love to.
Thank
man.
you.
You guys have been such a good audience. I love you.
I love you too.
I hope I see you guys tonight. Right on. I would just like to say that I was an altar boy when I was a kid, so in the Catholic Church, and it was pretty cool because that's where I got my start. I was playing in folk mass, and folk mass was pretty cool in the Catholic Church because I was an altar boy, and Bob Hope came to our church, and it was really cool having Bob Hope go to the church because he would say, the priest would go, the body of Christ, and then you would stick out your tongue. Back then you'd go... and they put a host on it. Nowadays, they hold their hands out in the Catholic Church. But back then, they would go, the body of Christ. You'd go, amen. And we would dress up and play priest, and we'd get Wonder Bread and flash it, spread it like it was a host when we were kids. And I go, I'm the priest. But Bob Hope would come up, and they would tell you when you were an altar boy, do not let the host, if it falls off of the tongue, do not let it hit the ground, or that means Jesus is dead and it's on you. So like, no guilt there. So Bob Hope came up, I remember, and I had the gold plate underneath him, and I was so scared. I was dressed in altar boy clothes, and the priest goes, body of Christ, and Bob Hope goes, amen, Father. And he looks at me and winks. Like that. Sticks his tongue out. And my hands were shaking. I put the host on it, rolled off, and I was like, no. And I dove and caught it just in time. And everybody's like, yes! We can go on living. Well, we first moved to the USA all the way from Canada. And we drove drove across the continent from Nova Scotia to Pasadena. My sister and me and my mom and dad, from the cold to the sunny south. There were palm trees growing and it was not snowing, and I never did shut my mouth. We drove on over to the courthouse in downtown Los Angeles. We put our hands on a Bible and we swore as a family that we were not communist. When we drove away, I started to cry. They said, "What's wrong, son? Are you sick?" I said, "I don't want to be an American. I want to be a Catholic." Hollywood and baseball in the car. The voice of Vin Scully, oh man, it would travel really far. Turn to the Hobby King. There's an airy spiderweb shadow coming into Chavez Ravine. Sandy Koufax walks out to the mound and he's up to his hips in alligators. Well, I made my first communion in St. Rita's Catholic Church. There was incense choking, a priest was smoking, there was a choir up in the perch. My face got red and my stomach felt bad. They said, "If you're gonna get sick, use a cup." Well, I thought by the time it was my turn for communion, Jesus would be all eaten up. Hollywood and baseball in the car. The voice of Jack Buck, oh man, it would travel really far. Jack Buck died about a bunch of years ago now, but man, what an announcer he was for the St. Louis Cardinals, Jack Buck. Vin Scully's voice, he just retired, Vin, but his voice was reedy and tenor-esque, but Jack Buck's voice was the total opposite. It was like he was in Havana, Cuba, and some auto mechanic with fat fingers rammed his fingers down Jack Buck's throat and ripped out his vocal cords, dropped him in a glass of rum, set the glass on fire, and then blew Cuban cigar smoke on his vocal cords, and then stuck them back in Jack Buck's throat and sewed them back in with a dirty needle. This is what Jack Buck's voice sounded like to me.
I'm in the bottom of the ninth inning. Mark McGwire going after the home run record set by Roger Maris of 61 home runs in 1961. I don't believe what I just saw.
Well, my allergies were bad, so we moved to the desert to a city called Palm Springs. We trick-or-treated at Liberace's house. Each finger had a dime ring. We met Elvis Presley in the middle of the summer, and he hugged my sister for far too long. Well, I felt kind of weird, but I would have pimped her out just to hear him sing a song. Hollywood and baseball in the car. The voice of Harry Carey, oh man, it'll always travel really far. Now, Harry Carey, he would get drunk, and he could never pronounce the players from the Dominican Republic's names. So say maybe if the Cubbies were playing the Cincinnati Reds, Harry Carey would be drunk on old-style beer, and he'd go, he couldn't say Davy Concepcion, an easy name like that. Come up with a top like little Dino Consiglione here at Wrigley Field. Get your old style here. Holy cow. I wish he could have seen that win last year. Him and Stevie Goodman, that would have been amazing. Now here I am, a growing up boy at home on the 4th of July, staring out at the ocean and the fireworks in the sky. I miss my friends who aren't around, the ones who passed away. Well, I'm feeling kinda grateful here on Independence Day. We talked Hollywood and baseball in the car. The voice of Jerry Coleman, oh man, it'll always travel really far. I get allergies and asthma in the yard, and no one ever told me growing up would be so hard.
Steve Poltz, everybody. It's Renee and Irish Greg's pop-up show, and stay close because we've got Ben Fong Torres.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh my God, a standing ovation. This is our first ever standing ovation.
Thank you so much.
And richly deserved.
Come say hi. I'll be over there by the merch. Peace out.
So, you guys stick around. Ben Fong Torres is up next. It's like a double bill today. Isn't that amazing? So, stick around for Ben Fong Torres. There's beer at the back. It's free. We say this at this point now because we're gonna pass a hat around because this podcast doesn't pay for itself. Right, Renee?
Well, oh, yeah, no. Yeah, we are going to pass a hat around. What I wanted to say was...
the first 20.
Oh,
really? Thank you. That's jewel money, right?
So,